Tonight I will be telling you the tales of Pak Pandir. Come join me. Hi there, my name is Heidi Shamsuddin. I'm a Malaysian author and welcome back to Nusantara Fairy Tales with Heidi. It's been a while, I apologize, but I'm here tonight. Now, the Pak Pandir stories are a series of comedic tales featuring the famous village fool Pak Pandir. Now, Pak Pandir is not the only comedic folktale in Malaysia. We also have other characters such as Pak Belalang, Lebai Malang, Silun Chai, and Pak Kado, amongst others, which I hope to introduce to you one day. But for now, I want to tell you two famous Pak Pandir stories which are contained in my book, Nusantara Fairy Tales with Heidi. And the first tale is called Pak Pandir and His Unfortunate Child. Let's listen to the story. Once there was a man called Pak Pandir. Unfortunately, he wasn't very clever and he was rather foolish. He was always getting himself into trouble. But fortunately, he was married to the very clever, the very lovely Mak Ande. Mak Ande loved Pak Pandir and was always looking out for him because she knew he wasn't very clever, but she had to be careful about what she said to Pak Pandir because sometimes he got even the simplest instructions wrong. And this is what happened on this particular occasion. One day, Ma Ande was in a rush to check on their paddy field. She wanted to see if the paddy was ready to be harvested, but at the same time, she was busy looking after their baby son. She looked at Pak Pandir, who was daydreaming outside, and she called him in. She said to him, Pak Pandir, I need your help. I need to go to the paddy field to check on our crops. Please take care of our son. Pak Pandir nodded and said, yes, I can do that, Ma Ande. I've already fed the baby, but he needs a nice warm bath before he takes his nap. Listen very carefully. You must boil some water, fill up his bathtub to make a nice warm bath for him. Make sure the water is warm. Pak Pandir nodded and said, yes, dear, I will bathe the baby in warm water. Don't worry. And with that, Ma Ande left the house. Pak Pandir sat down and played with his son for a little while and then suddenly remembered that he had to give him a nice warm bath. So he tried to recall his wife's instructions. Ma Ande told me to boil some water and to fill the tub to make sure that the water is nice and warm, thought Pak Pandir. So he took a big cauldron, which Ma Ande used to boil water, and he began to fill it up with fresh water. Then he lit a fire and waited for the water to boil. I must not let the baby catch a cold, said Pak Pandir to himself. The water should be nice and warm. As Pak Pandir stared at the boiling water, a sudden thought entered his mind. Boiling water and filling up the tub will take too long. It'll be faster and easier if I simply boil the water in this cauldron and bathe the baby here, he said to himself. He was really pleased with his brilliant idea. Come now, my son, it's time for you to have your bath. Ma Ande wants you to have a nice warm bath, he said, as he lowered his son into the boiling water. The baby kicked and splashed, but silly Pak Pandir thought that his son was happy to have a nice warm bath. Ma Ande will be happy when she sees what I've done, he said to himself. Just then, Ma Ande walked through the door. When she saw her baby being scalded by the hot water, she let out a piercing scream. Pak Pandir, what have you done to our son? She screamed. What do you mean, Ma Ande? Our son is enjoying a nice warm bath. But by then, it was too late and the baby was gone. The end. So when I came across this story as a child, it just made me hate Pak Pandir. I'll be honest with you. He wasn't my favorite character. I mean, why was he so stupid and irresponsible? I felt so sorry for this baby who had to die a senseless death. And I felt sorry for Ma Ande as well. Why does she have to think of everything? Why does she have to micromanage everything? Pak Pandir should know, right? Not to boil his son in the cauldron of boiling water. I mean, any normal adult know that, surely. So basically, I wasn't really a fan of these Papander stories. There are many, many Papander stories, I should add, but this is the most gruesome Papander story. In fact, later on, I learned that these stories were considered to be comedic. They were comedy stories. But how can this story possibly be a comedy? I didn't understand it. So these type of comedic tales are actually prevalent all across Southeast Asia. In fact, Chinese idioms are full of stories of foolish young people, young men usually, who manage to outwit and triumph against their elders, against their leaders, for example. So why is this so? Well, perhaps the answer lies by taking a deeper look at our culture here in Southeast Asia, where younger members of society can't really call out or reprimand their elders. It is generally considered rude and in bad form. And this is the case even though the older person, be it a leader or a parent, is obviously in the wrong. Generally, if you are an ordinary citizen or you're a young member of society, you can't really call out these injustices without facing some kind of repercussions. These satirical tales may be a way for younger people and ordinary citizens to make their voices heard. In a society where complete and utter loyalty is expected of its citizens, perhaps the only way to make a stand for justice is through wit and humor. In Malay, we would call this teguran or sindiran. So teguran is just gently chiding someone when they do something bad, whereas sindiran is being kind of sarcastic about something, but it is not obvious that you are criticizing them. It is not a direct form of criticism. So in this regard, even though characters such as Papander are viewed as foolish, stupid, and even moronic, they are there for a reason. They actually have a cause, and that is to allow the ordinary person the opportunity to kind of tegur or call out their leaders, call out an injustice. We are making fun and laughing at the characters who are actually delivering a hidden message. These tales contain elements of social criticism and moral justice. So, viewed from that aspect, these tales kind of like grew on me, which is why I included them in the book. Now let me tell you the second Papander stories, because these stories are so short I can fit two in. I've chosen this particular story because in the next episode I'll do another audio recording of a reading, and this time I'm going to read the Malay version of this story that I'm about to tell you. This story is titled Papandir's Bag of Salt. The story that I'll read you in the next episode comes from an old Malay book, so the language is quite old-fashioned as well. I wanted to read the story in Malay because this is the language that these stories were originally told in. And Malay is such a lovely language. It's beautiful. I wanted you to have an opportunity to listen to the story in the original language. I won't translate the story, but the gist of the story is quite similar to the one that I'm about to tell you, okay? So I hope you enjoy the story. It is called Papandir's Bag of Salt, and it's also in my book, Nusantara, A Sea of Tales. One day, Papander had a terrible day working under the hot sun in his paddy field. He decided that there must be an easier way to make a living. He told his wife, Ma Ande, this is too hard. There must be an easier way. Ma Ande just shook her head and laughed. Papander, at least we have a plot of land and we can grow our own rice. If we work hard now, we can live an easy life later. Papander disagreed. He was tired of working in the paddy field and decided that he would open a new business in order to make money. I know. I will get some salt from the sea and sell it to the villagers. Everyone needs salt for their cooking. This is a great idea, my best yet. We will be rich. Papander just shook her head. She didn't say anything because sometimes it was just better to let Papander carry out his silly ideas. The next day, Papander woke up early and told Maande that he was going to the seaside to collect salt. He grabbed a big sack and took a pleasant walk under the shade of the coconut trees. Ah, this is more like it. Walking to the beach on a beautiful morning is so much nicer than working in the paddy field, said Papander to himself. The sun was shining, the breeze was cool, and Papander was feeling pleased with himself. When he arrived, he dug a small hole in the sand and poured seawater into the hole. Then Papander sat under the cool shade and took a mid-morning nap. A few hours later, the hot sun had evaporated the seawater, leaving clumps of salt in the hole. Papander was very excited when he saw the salt. Oh, look at all this salt. I will take the salt and keep it safe in my sack. Tomorrow, I will sell the salt at the market and we will be rich. Papander scooped up all the salt and with a happy heart made his way home. After walking for an hour, Papander felt a bit tired and decided to have another nap. However, he was worried that someone would come and steal his sack of salt. And so he decided to hide the sack under a rock in the river. I am very clever. No one will find my salt here, he said as he settled down for his second nap of the day. An hour later, Papander woke up, took his sack of salt and continued his journey home. Maande, look how much salt I've collected, said Papander as he opened the sack and poured out the contents into a bowl. But to his surprise, nothing came out. What are you talking about, Papander? I do not see any salt, said Maande. Maande, I think someone has stolen all my salt. Papander told his wife how he had stopped for a nap on the way home and had hidden the sack of salt in the river. Papander, you are a silly old man. All the salt in your sack is gone. The river has taken it. Papander felt very silly indeed. The next day, he decided it was easier to go back to work on his paddy field. The end. Most of these Papander stories follow a set sequence of events. So we meet Papander, watch him get into trouble, usually of his own making. In this story, he imagines that someone might steal his bag of salt and devises a silly way of hiding it. So the foolishness of Papander is usually offset by his wife Maande, who is sensible, clever, and kind enough to protect her, stupid husband. Yes, she sometimes likes to trick him and make fun of him, but on the whole, she is an exemplary wife, even when his actions cause death to their child and causes more work for herself. In this sense, these stories do put quite a positive spin on the role of women. So the women in the Papander story is the one who overcomes the difficulties. She's clever, sensible, responsible. But then, if you really think about it, if she's so clever, why is she still with Papander? I really don't understand it. He is so silly. He's so foolish. She has to basically micromanage everything, make sure she tells him the exact correct instructions so he doesn't mess things up. It creates more work for her. Why is Maande still with Papander? This is the question which I always ask. Maande is basically a saint because if it were me, I would have left that fool a long time ago. So like I mentioned before, next week I will be doing an audio recording of an old Papander story. It's similar to the one I told you. There is a bit of variation, but I will be reading the story to you in Bahasa Melayu, the Malay language, which is the original language of this story. So what did you think of this story? Please do leave a comment. If you like this video and my other videos, please do like and subscribe to my channel and support me in my mission to spread these Nusantara stories out there. I hope you enjoy the next audio video and I will see you in the next episode.